Have you ever wondered what happened to the wives of the fallen angels after the great flood? A question that has lingered for centuries, shrouded in mystery and biblical intrigue. These women, once connected to celestial beings, didn't just vanish from the pages of Scripture. Their stories, dark and fascinating, still echo through time, like whispers in the wind. We know that the world before the flood was one of corruption and violence, where the sons of God saw the beauty of the daughters of men and took them as wives. But what became of these wives, and why does the Bible remain silent about their fate? As we dive into this mystery, you may uncover secrets that change the way you see the ancient world, and even the lives of those who walked with the divine. Today, we embark on a journey into the heart of one of the Bible's greatest enigmas. From the first witches on earth to the sirens that would haunt the seas, we'll unravel the hidden connections between the fallen angels and the women who bore their children. Could it be that the mermaid myths we hear today have their roots in this ancient tale? Let's explore this mystery together, and by the end, you might just see these ancient stories in a whole new light. Stay with me as we venture deep into the pages of Scripture, unlocking hidden truths that have been buried for millennia. Keep watching, because what you are about to discover may surprise you. Imagine a time, long before our modern world, when the heavens and the earth were not so distant. A time when the divine touched the mortal realm in ways that we can hardly comprehend today. In the book of Genesis, we are given a glimpse of this otherworldly interaction, a moment where the sons of God looked down upon the daughters of men and found them beautiful. They took these women as their wives, and together they birthed giants, mighty beings who were known as the heroes of renown. But what happened to these women, these wives of the fallen angels, after the flood? What became of them? The Bible leaves us with a mysterious silence about their fate, but one thing is clear: their lives were irrevocably changed. These women were not merely ordinary human beings. They had been chosen by divine beings, angels who had descended from heaven to mingle with mankind. Their union with these celestial beings did not simply create giants, but it also gave rise to something far darker and far-reaching in the history of humanity. Genesis 6:1-4 gives us the first account of this mysterious event. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. It goes on to describe the consequences of their actions, the corruption of mankind, and the eventual destruction of the world through the flood. But there's a detail here that we often overlook. The women were not the ones who were punished for this act. The angels, those who had descended and taken them as wives, were cast into chains, imprisoned in the deepest parts of the earth. These women, however, seem to have slipped away from this fate, their lives continuing in the aftermath of the flood. So, what happened to them? As we explore this mystery, we find that some of the ancient texts offer us a glimpse into their transformation. According to the Book of Enoch, one of the oldest and most mysterious texts in the Bible, the wives of the fallen angels were cursed. They were said to have been transformed into sirens, strange and haunting creatures who lured sailors to their doom with their beautiful voices. This transformation didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the result of their union with the celestial beings, an act that brought both grace and devastation to the world. The Sirens, in ancient lore, were known for their seductive songs that could cause men to lose their way, shipwrecking them on rocky shores. The Sirens of Greek mythology were often depicted as beautiful women with bird-like features, their voices drawing men into dangerous waters. While the myth of the siren is often associated with the sea, there is something deeper at play here. The sirens, in essence, became symbols of temptation and destruction. They were the embodiment of the very thing that had brought about the corruption of mankind, the blending of the divine and the human, the pure and the impure. But here's the twist. This myth didn't just begin with Greek mythology. The concept of sirens, or beings who lured others into danger through their voices, has roots that stretch across many cultures. In the Bible, we find references to creatures similar to the sirens in the books of Isaiah and Jeremiah. The Hebrew word tanim, often translated as jackals or dragons, is sometimes rendered as sirens in ancient texts. These creatures were not merely mythological, they were deeply symbolic, representing the destructive power of sin and the consequences of human rebellion against God. So what did these women become? According to the Book of Enoch, they became something far more than just victims of the fallen angels. They were transformed into sirens, creatures who were both beautiful and deadly, alluring yet dangerous. They were no longer the innocent daughters of men, but were forever changed by their union with beings from the heavens. This transformation serves as a powerful lesson for us today. In the Bible, the blending of the divine and the human is often portrayed as something that leads to corruption and destruction. From the fall of Adam and Eve to the rebellion of the angels, we see that when the sacred and the profane mix, the results are rarely good. The wives of the fallen angels, once human, became part of a much larger cosmic struggle. They were caught between two worlds, and their transformation into sirens was a reflection of the profound consequences of their choices. But there's also a deeper, more personal lesson in their story. It reminds us that the decisions we make, whether in the realm of relationships, desires, or choices, have consequences that extend far beyond our own lives. The wives of the fallen angels didn't set out to become sirens. They simply made a choice that led them down a path from which there was no turning back. Their story serves as a reminder of the power of choices and the responsibility we bear in every decision we make. As we move forward, we see that the sirens, in all their beauty and danger, became symbols of temptation in a world that had already fallen into chaos. Their transformation was not just physical, it was spiritual. The sirens were not just beings that lived by the sea. They were living representations of the allure of sin, drawing men away from the truth and into destruction. And in the process, they became part of a much larger cosmic drama, one that would ultimately lead to the flood and the purification of the earth. But even in the aftermath of the flood, when the earth was cleansed and the giants were wiped from existence, the legacy of the wives of the fallen angels lived on. The myths and stories that surrounded them did not disappear. Instead, they morphed, taking on new forms and new meanings in different cultures. The sirens, once seen as beautiful and dangerous, became the stuff of legend, their seductive songs echoing through the ages. Their story, like the flood itself, is a reminder that the consequences of our actions can ripple through time, leaving marks on history and culture for generations to come. The wives of the fallen angels were not merely casualties of a divine punishment. They were witnesses to the deeper truth that when the sacred is corrupted, the effects can be far-reaching and eternal. So, as we continue our journey through this ancient mystery, let us not forget the lesson that the wives of the fallen angels have to offer. Their story is not just one of sin and punishment, but one of transformation, of the power of choices, and of the far-reaching effects of the blending of the divine and the human. It is a story that speaks to the very core of our own struggles and decisions today. Let us continue to seek the truth in these ancient tales, for in them we may find not just the story of the past, but lessons for our present and future. And as we explore the depths of this mystery, we will uncover the hidden truths that have been buried for millennia, waiting to be revealed. As we journey deeper into this story, we must ask ourselves, what does the transformation of these women into sirens really mean for us today? The sirens were not just mythological creatures. They were symbols of temptation and spiritual peril, a reminder of how powerful the pull of sin can be when we blend the sacred with the profane. In their seductive songs, we hear the haunting whispers of a warning, one that speaks not only of ancient times, but of the choices we face every day. The Bible itself offers us many stories of temptation: Eve's choice in the Garden of Eden, the Israelites' worship of golden idols, and the many warnings of Jesus against the snares of sin. But the tale of the wives of the fallen angels and their ultimate transformation into sirens takes this lesson to a different level. It's not just about the external temptations we face, but about the internal compromises we make, often unknowingly, that lead us away from the truth. These women didn't set out to be cursed, nor did they wish to bring destruction into the world. Yet their union with the divine, though initially seen as something beautiful, led them down a path that ultimately turned them into dangerous figures. When we reflect on this, we're reminded of how easily we, too, can be lured into choices that seem innocent at first, but gradually lead us away from what we know to be right. The sirens, with their alluring beauty and haunting voices, represent the subtlety of temptation. They don't drag us into sin with force or anger. Instead, they seduce us with promises of fulfillment, pleasure, and even power. But just as the sailors were led to their deaths by the sweet sounds of the siren's song, we, too, can be led astray by the fleeting allure of earthly desires. This is the crux of the lesson we can learn from the wives of the fallen angels. The danger lies not in the grand, dramatic choices we face, but in the subtle, almost imperceptible compromises that we make each day. We may not be called to confront fallen angels, but we are daily confronted by choices that test our faith, our values, and our commitment to what is good and pure. Like the sirens, these choices can be cloaked in beauty and desirability, yet they can lead us down a path of destruction if we are not careful. As we continue exploring this mystery, it becomes clear that the sirens were not just a curse on these women, they were a reflection of the human condition itself. The blending of the sacred with the profane doesn't just happen in ancient times or in the realm of angels and demons. It happens in our everyday lives. It's the moments when we compromise our values for the sake of convenience, when we turn a blind eye to the truth for fear of discomfort, when we choose what is easy over what is right. These are the moments that shape our destiny, just as the choice of the wives of the fallen angels shaped theirs. But here's the hope we can find in this story. Just as the flood washed away the giants and cleansed the earth, so too can we find redemption and renewal in our own lives. The sirens, though tragic in their transformation, are not the final word in this story. God's grace and mercy are always at work, even in the most broken and corrupted places. In the end, the wives of the fallen angels were caught in the consequences of their choices. But their story doesn't have to be ours. It's a reminder that no matter how far we may have gone down a path of temptation, there is always the opportunity for redemption, for a new beginning. Just as the flood wiped away the corruption of the earth and brought a new hope through Noah, so too can we find a fresh start through the grace of God. The sirens may symbolize temptation and destruction, but they also serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of our choices and the consequences they carry. So, as we continue to unravel the mysteries of the fallen angels and their wives, let's not forget the ultimate lesson they offer us. Our choices matter. What we choose today shapes our future, and the path we walk can either lead us toward redemption or toward destruction. It is in our power to choose wisely, to resist the seductive songs of temptation, and to walk in the light of truth and righteousness. With this in mind, we turn to the next part of this story, where we will explore how the Sirens, despite their curse, became part of a larger mythos that stretches across cultures and generations. Their legacy, though rooted in darkness, also carries a profound message about the enduring struggle between good and evil, temptation and redemption. Stay with me as we uncover more about the Sirens and their place in both ancient and modern storytelling. For in their myth, we may find deeper truths that still speak to us today. As we delve deeper into the legacy of the Sirens, we must confront an essential question. How did these women, once human, become such powerful symbols of temptation and destruction? Their transformation didn't happen overnight. It was the result of a series of choices that set in motion a tragic and far-reaching consequence. The Sirens didn't just appear as mysterious creatures from the sea. Their origins were rooted in a far more complex story of divine beings and human beings intertwining in ways that defied the natural order. In the ancient world, the Sirens were known for their enchanting voices, which could lead men to their doom. They were portrayed as beautiful women, often with bird-like features, luring sailors to their deaths by singing songs so beautiful and haunting that they could cause a ship to crash upon the rocks. But this imagery, though compelling, only scratches the surface of what the Sirens represented. In many cultures, the Sirens were more than just mythical creatures. They embodied the allure of sin and the consequences of stepping away from the path of righteousness. The connection between the Sirens and the wives of the fallen angels goes beyond mere physical transformation. It speaks to something far deeper, something that has reverberated through history and continues to influence the way we view temptation and the human condition. The Sirens, in their most profound form, were not just creatures of destruction. They were symbols of a much larger cosmic battle, the battle between good and evil, between light and darkness, and between the sacred and the profane. What's fascinating here is how the Sirens, once human women, transformed by their connection to the divine, came to symbolize the dangers of mixing the sacred with the profane. The Bible and other ancient texts warn against such intermingling, whether it's through the corruption of the Garden of Eden or the illicit union of the fallen angels and human women. The story of the Sirens serves as a stark reminder that when we allow the sacred to be tainted by the world, the consequences can be severe. The Sirens are not just victims of their fate. They represent the results of a deeper spiritual misalignment, one that is often difficult to see until it's too late. These women, who were once merely the daughters of men, now found themselves caught in a web of corruption and consequence, their lives forever altered by their union with the fallen angels. They became symbols of temptation, drawing others into the same trap that ensnared them. In doing so, they fulfilled a role that was far beyond what they had ever anticipated, becoming the voices that led others astray. In modern times, we still hear the echoes of the Siren's song. The metaphor of the Siren continues to represent the subtle yet powerful allure of temptation, whether it's the lure of wealth, fame, power, or pleasure. These temptations often promise fulfillment, but like the Sirens of old, they ultimately lead to destruction. The beauty of the song can be overwhelming, and the danger is often hidden beneath a veneer of allure. We've all faced these moments, whether in the form of a bad decision, an unhealthy relationship, or a temptation to compromise our values for short-term gain. The lesson the sirens teach us is simple yet profound. Not everything that glitters is gold. Just because something appears beautiful or tempting doesn't mean it's good for us. But while the sirens represent the dangers of temptation, they also serve as a powerful lesson in the need for spiritual vigilance. Their story warns us that we must not be swayed by appearances or enticed by fleeting pleasures. In the Bible, we are constantly reminded to guard our hearts and minds, to remain faithful to the path of righteousness. Proverbs 4:23 tells us, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." The sirens, with their haunting beauty, remind us that the greatest battles we face are often fought within, against the temptations that arise in our own hearts and minds. So, as we reflect on the legacy of the sirens and their connection to the wives of the fallen angels, we are reminded that temptation is not a new phenomenon. It has existed since the beginning of time, and it will continue to be a force we must contend with in our own lives. The sirens, though part of a myth, are deeply rooted in the truth of our human experience. They remind us that we must be vigilant, for the temptations of the world are always present, calling to us in ways we may not even recognize at first. The sirens also teach us about the power of transformation. The wives of the fallen angels didn't simply remain as they were changed, altered by their choices, just as we are often changed by the decisions we make. These changes may not always be visible to others, but they are deeply felt within. The transformation of the sirens is a reflection of the profound impact that our choices can have on our lives. The choices we make today, however small they may seem, can shape our future in ways we cannot yet comprehend. In the next part of our journey, we will explore how these myths, the sirens, the fallen angels, and the wives, have continued to influence cultures and belief systems throughout history. Their legacy, though rooted in ancient times, still holds lessons for us today. As we move forward, we'll see how these stories have been interpreted, adapted, and woven into the fabric of human culture, carrying with them timeless truths about the nature of temptation, the consequences of our actions, and the hope for redemption. Stay with me as we continue to explore this ancient mystery, for the lessons of the past are never as distant as we might think. As we continue to explore the legacy of the sirens and their connection to the wives of the fallen angels, it's important to consider how these ancient stories have been passed down through the ages, morphing and evolving with each new culture and generation. The siren myth, deeply rooted in the ancient world, has not only remained alive in the collective memory, but has also been woven into the fabric of modern storytelling, literature, and even psychology. There's something enduring about the siren song, the way it resonates with human nature and the timeless struggle against temptation. From ancient Greece to the shores of modern cinema, the siren has remained a potent symbol of seductive danger, representing that voice which calls us to something alluring yet destructive. But what does this myth really teach us today? Why has it endured for so long? And what can we learn from it in our own lives? One of the most striking aspects of the siren myth is its ability to resonate with universal human experiences. In every culture, the figure of the siren represents something more than just a sea creature or a mythological being. Sirens embody the allure of what seems beautiful and desirable, but with a hidden cost, something far darker lurking beneath the surface. This is a reflection of our own human desires and struggles. We are often drawn to things that promise happiness, success, or fulfillment, Yet these things often come at a price. Whether it's the temptation of greed, fame, or fleeting pleasures, we are constantly confronted with choices that seem alluring on the outside but ultimately lead to destruction. Think about how the sirens continue to appear in modern culture. From the mermaids of Disney's The Little Mermaid to the haunting figures in the films of today, the siren remains a powerful archetype. These portrayals, while varying in detail and style, share one thing in common: the idea of a voice that calls us to the unknown, to what seems like paradise but ultimately leads to ruin. The allure of the siren's song is often depicted as irresistible, just as our own temptations often appear impossible to resist. The tragedy, of course, is that the beauty of the siren is not enough to save the sailors who hear it. Instead, they are led to shipwreck, dashed upon the rocks, their hopes dashed by the very thing they were drawn to. This myth, in its many forms, is a reminder that not everything that seems good is good for us. The siren song is a metaphor for the seductive power of sin. It reminds us that temptation often comes disguised as something beautiful, something we think we need, but in reality, it is a trap. How many times have we been led astray by something that appeared good, only to find ourselves in a worse place than before? The sirens serve as a warning that the things we chase after, whether they are relationships, wealth, power, or status, often carry hidden dangers. But here's where the story takes a turn. While the siren represents the destructive pull of temptation, she also embodies the profound truth that we have the power to resist. The very fact that we recognize the danger in the siren's song is proof of our ability to choose differently. This is where the hope of redemption comes in. Just as the sirens ultimately led to destruction for the sailors, the story of the fallen angels and their wives ultimately offers a deeper lesson. No matter how far we've strayed, no matter how alluring the temptation, we can always choose to turn back. The Bible is filled with examples of people who have faced great temptations: Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, David with Bathsheba, and even Jesus himself in the wilderness. In each case, there was a choice: to give in to the allure of temptation or to stand firm in faith. What sets these stories apart is that redemption is always available. In the case of the wives of the fallen angels, their story is not the end of their lives. They may have been cursed, transformed into sirens, but there is always the possibility of redemption in God's grace. No matter the depth of our fall, there is always a way back. The story of the sirens is not just about temptation and destruction, it's also about the power of choice and the opportunity for transformation. The sirens, in their beauty and danger, serve as a reminder that we have the ability to choose the path we walk. We can either heed the call of temptation and allow it to drag us to the rocks, or we can resist, turn away, and choose a better path. Just as the sirens were transformed by their choices, so too can we find transformation through our own decisions. In modern times, we are surrounded by countless sirens. These are the temptations that call to us every day, whether through social media, advertisements, relationships, or our own desires. But just as the siren song is a powerful force, so too is the strength we have within us to resist. The story of the sirens teaches us that while we may be drawn to temptation, we are not powerless against it. We can choose to listen to the voice of truth and turn away from the destructive path. As we continue on this journey of discovery, we see that the siren song is not the only voice we can hear. There is another call, one that leads to peace, joy, and eternal life. Jesus himself called out to us, offering a path that is narrow but leads to life. In Matthew 7:13-14, he says, "Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." This is the true song we should follow, the voice that calls us to life, to redemption, and to transformation. It is the voice that, like the sirens, is hard to hear over the noise of the world, but it is the only one that leads to a place of eternal peace. Just as the sirens represent the allure of temptation, the voice of Christ represents the promise of deliverance. In the end, we must ask ourselves, which song will we choose to follow? As we continue to explore this ancient mystery, let us remember that the sirens, though a symbol of temptation, are not the end of the story. They are part of a larger narrative that includes the power of redemption, the strength to resist temptation, and the choice we make every day. In the next part of our journey, we will examine how these myths have influenced cultures and belief systems around the world and the timeless truths they continue to teach us today. Stay with me as we uncover more about the sirens' legacy and the lessons they offer for our lives. As we continue our exploration of the sirens and their enduring legacy, it's important to understand that these mythical creatures, born from ancient stories, have had a profound influence on how we view temptation, sin, and the human condition. Their legacy isn't confined to just one culture or time period. It has woven itself through the very fabric of our shared human experience. From ancient texts to modern-day interpretations, the sirens have remained an ever-present symbol of the dangerous allure of temptation and the consequences of giving in to it. What makes the sirens so compelling, even today, is that they embody something we all face: the tension between desire and consequence. It's easy to look at the story of the sirens and think, that could never happen to me. But the truth is, the siren song isn't always as obvious as we might think. We don't always hear it as loudly as the sailors did, but it's there, lurking in the choices we make each day. The sirens remind us that our desires, when unchecked, can lead us down a path of destruction, and that the consequences of giving in to temptation are not always immediate, but can be long-lasting and far-reaching. Take, for instance, the modern world we live in. Every day, we are faced with choices that, on the surface, seem harmless or even beneficial. We scroll through social media, buy into consumer culture, or allow ourselves to indulge in fleeting pleasures. All of these things can seem harmless in the moment, much like the siren song. But when we look deeper, we see that these choices often have consequences that can leave us feeling lost, disconnected, or even empty. Much like the sailors who heard the siren's call and ultimately met their doom, we too can fall prey to the seductive pull of worldly desires. This is why the story of the sirens is not just a warning. It's also a call to awareness. The ancient world wasn't the only one susceptible to temptation. We too must be vigilant in the choices we make, constantly asking ourselves whether we are truly following the path that leads to life, or whether we are being drawn into the allure of the siren's call. As we saw earlier, the Bible offers us numerous examples of temptation, but it also provides us with a solution: the power of choice. Just as the siren's call can be resisted, so too can the temptations that we face in our everyday lives. The challenge, however, lies in recognizing the temptation when it comes. The sirens didn't come with horns blaring or drums pounding. They came softly, subtly, with their song calling out in the distance, drawing sailors toward the rocks. In much the same way, the temptations of this world often come quietly, without warning, until we are already headed toward destruction. This is why it's so important to stay alert, to be aware of the songs we are listening to, and to discern whether they are leading us to a place of life or a place of harm. But here's the hope in all of this. The power to resist lies within each of us. In the face of temptation, we are not powerless. Just as the Sirens' song could be resisted by the strong-willed sailors who turned away from it, so too can we turn away from the allure of the world. The Bible reminds us time and time again that God has equipped us with the strength and wisdom to overcome the temptations we face. In 1 Corinthians 10:13, we are assured, "No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it." This verse offers us not just comfort, but also empowerment. It tells us that, while we will face temptations, we are never left without the means to resist them. We can choose to turn away from the siren's call, to follow the narrow path that leads to life, and to find strength in the knowledge that we are never alone in this battle. God is with us, providing the way out whenever we face temptation, guiding us to safety. And so, as we reflect on the story of the Sirens and their connection to the wives of the fallen angels, we are reminded of the timeless struggle between temptation and redemption. The Sirens, once a curse upon those who listen to their song, now stand as a symbol of the choices we make every day. They remind us that we are constantly being called by the world, by our desires, and by forces beyond our understanding. But we have the power to choose. We can choose to follow the path that leads to life. Or we can be swept away by the seductive whispers that seek to draw us away from God's truth. As we move forward, we find hope in the fact that, though the Sirens represent a very real danger, they are not the end of the story. Just as God provided Noah with a way of salvation in the ark, so too does He provide us with the strength and guidance to resist temptation. The story of the Sirens is not just a cautionary tale. It is also a story of hope. It reminds us that, even when we are caught in the grip of temptation, there is always a way out, always the chance for redemption, and always the opportunity to choose a better path. In the next section of our journey, we will explore how the Sirens have influenced cultures around the world, how their myth has evolved over time, and how we can apply the lessons of their story to our own lives. Stay with me as we continue to uncover the truths hidden in these ancient stories, for in them lie lessons that speak to our lives today. As we come to the end of this journey together, we're left with a deep, lingering question. What will we do with the stories we've uncovered? The tales of the wives of the fallen angels, transformed into sirens, are not just ancient myths. They carry timeless lessons that resonate in our lives today. These stories teach us about the dangers of temptation, the consequences of our choices, and the power of redemption. They remind us that no matter how alluring the temptations of this world may seem, we always have a choice. Just as the sailors could resist the pull of the siren's song, we too can resist the seductions that try to lead us astray. But it's not always easy, is it? Every day we face choices that call to us, whispering promises of happiness, success, or fulfillment. And while some of those choices may seem harmless at first, we've learned from the Sirens that the price of giving in can be far greater than we ever imagined. The truth is, we are constantly navigating a world filled with distractions, all of them trying to pull us off the course we know is right. It's a struggle that goes beyond the myth of the Sirens. It's a battle for our hearts, our minds, and our futures. But just as the Sirens were ultimately defeated, so too can we overcome the forces that seek to derail us. It all starts with the power of choice. Every moment we are given the opportunity to choose the path that leads to life, to truth, and to fulfillment. We don't have to follow the sirens. We don't have to be swept away by the currents of temptation. Instead, we can choose to stand firm, to turn away from the call of destruction, and to follow the voice of truth. And what's even more powerful is that we're not alone in this. The same grace that redeemed the world through Noah's Ark is available to us today. The Bible promises that we are never tempted beyond what we can bear, and that there will always be a way out when we face temptation. So, when we feel ourselves being drawn in by the sirens of our own lives, whether they be temptations of the flesh, the ego, or material wealth, we can remember that there is a way back, a way to choose what is good, what is true, and what is life-giving. I hope that this journey into the depths of these ancient stories has opened your eyes to the power of your own choices and to the incredible possibility of redemption. As we reflect on the sirens, on the wives of the fallen angels, and on the stories of temptation throughout the Bible, let's remember that we are not defined by our past, by our mistakes, or by the temptations we've given into. Instead, we are defined by the choices we make today, the choice to rise above, to seek redemption, and to walk the narrow path that leads to life. If you found value in this exploration of ancient myths, if it has inspired you to think more deeply about the choices you face, and if it has reminded you that no temptation is too great to overcome, then I encourage you to share this video. Like it, subscribe to the channel, and join me as we continue to uncover more hidden truths from the Bible, more mysteries from history, and more stories that speak to the heart of what it means to live with purpose and faith. Remember, the siren song may be loud, but the voice of truth is always louder. And when we listen to that voice, when we choose the path that leads to life, we will find a peace and fulfillment that nothing else can provide. So let's walk this path together. Let's choose to follow the voice of truth, resist the temptation to stray, and discover the rich, abundant life that awaits us. Thank you for being part of this journey, for exploring these ancient mysteries with me, and for allowing these stories to challenge and inspire you. I can't wait to continue this exploration with you in the next video. Until then, may you stay strong, stay faithful, and remember, no matter how powerful the temptation may seem, you always have the strength to choose differently.